Okay, okay,
Okay,
great, thank
got it.
you. And can someone, I don't know if John took the notes when he was running it. Um, I'm not very flexible in terms of trying to run a meeting and take notes at the same time. Can someone take notes and I could then take them and make sure they get published in the right location?
Wasn't there an AI for it?
Okay, so let's see how we're doing we've got 9 people here, and it's 10:04, so I think we should start. And Shing, you said it is being recorded?
Yes, I've already started recording.
Thank you. Okay, so this is, so this meeting will be a little bit rough for 2 reasons. One, John isn't leading the meetings anymore. In fact, he's not going to be the lead of this KEP. And it's with regrets because he really would like to see, we kind of smell that it's getting very close to being good enough to be merged, and he would have liked to take it through to the finish line, but another opportunity came up doing some edge work, and he's really excited about that. And the only way to really allow him to be successful at the new work is to let go of this KEP work. And so that's what we've done at Red Hat, and he's going to be missed. I know we all appreciate the work he put in there. So his role's been divided, and I'll just go through a few of those things right now. Sid, who's run a couple of these meetings already and has been contributing code and design, Sid will take over technical leadership of this KEP. All technical aspects, unresolved issues, we're figuring out resolution to issues, and the communication of that will be on Sid and people that will assist him with that. Aaron Boyd and myself, and I don't have my screen in front of me, so I don't know if Aaron has made it to the meeting yet. We will deal with the administrative aspects of the KEP. And that means running these meetings, making sure recording is uploaded, notes are uploaded. And me personally, I'll be updating the KEP. I went through about a third of it last night. I made comments sort of as reminders to myself of what to address when I create another commit for the KEP. There's inconsistencies, there's some stale information in there. We don't use the word bucket always the right way. Sometimes it has its old meaning because we changed the API names a few times. So I'll try to get it as current as I'm able to within the next few days. So that Shing will continue to record these meetings. I don't know if we're going to have anyone who will have a role of being a note taker or not. The last person who's committed to working on this is Rob Roddy, R-A-T-I. He's working on the controller sidecar. And we are definitely looking for any extra help we can get. We have momentum, and my goal, and I think I speak for everyone who's hung in here as long as we all have right now, we'd really like to take this to the finish line. And Saad, maybe I'm looking at notes instead of my screen. Saad, I don't know if you're on the meeting, but
yep,
maybe you can help us understand what are the last steps we need to do to get this PR merged. If it's merged, it's not static and stuck like that. We can do other PRs against it, but we need this main PR merged. I think sooner is definitely better than later. And I think to get it merged from a community point of view, we just need to have, I think, 2 things. Community agrees with our use cases, and 2, they agree, community feels confidence that we can deliver on meeting those use cases. We have a solution that will work. And some of the details don't need to be completely fleshed out in order to merge the PR. That's my understanding. Saad, do you agree?
yeah, that makes sense. And I think maybe what we can do to make sure that there's community consensus is the meeting next week, let's use that to present the CAP. And before that, send a message to Kubernetes SIG storage and say, hey, we think that this CAP is ready to kind of get to a point where it can be merged. We're going to present it to the wider community. Anybody who's interested, please attend this meeting at this date, which is effectively the next meeting that we're going to have.
Okay.
And then if anybody has concerns, they can raise it in that meeting as well as offline. And if there's no concerns, we can go ahead and get that merged after that.
And this KEP review meeting is every week, right?
Well, I mean, this meeting is every week. I don't
Yeah.
think we have a official KEP review, meeting, but we can use this meeting as a KEP review meeting for the
Okay.
next iteration.
Okay. And you were saying communicate to SIG storage, invite them all to come to this review meeting. So next week we
Right.
will have a full-fledged KEP review.
Yeah, maybe a couple days before that next meeting, send out a message to Kubernetes SIG storage and say, hey, we're going to have a full-fledged KEP review. If you're interested in this at all, now's the time to kind of jump in and
Okay.
take a look. And if you have any feedback, you can provide it in the meeting or offline on the KEP, and we can go from there.
That sounds great to me. So in terms of the rest of this meeting, I had hoped to get a few more administrative aspects related to this KEP done last night, and I didn't get to them. So all I've done is taken some notes. Sid and I met yesterday to just go over how roles are being, who's doing what kind of right now. Sid wanted to make sure it was really clear. There's no hierarchy in this role. Obviously, I mean, standard good Kubernetes open source practices. Everyone's opinion matters here. It doesn't matter if Sid's technical lead, you can have a technical disagreement, and that's fine. It's a community effort. We want all the voices to count. I think we got some there's a repo issue, sort of, as if I kind of wrap up some administrative sides. We have this repo or an organization in GitHub, container object storage interface. But the feedback we got was we should be using personal repos, and then when the KEPs merged, we would do PRs out of them. I don't know. Sid and I thought we should just use this container object storage interface organization as it is, and it's just kind of a shared personal repo. Is that okay, Sod, or are we breaking some important rule?
I think based on our conversation with Chris, he suggested against it. I think just for potential.
I don't know why though.
I think there's just weirdness around potential legal issues if you have something that's kind of has like a trademark on it, potentially. So I would just to avoid all of that, do it the way that we've been doing it classically, which is use personal repos and then have PRs against the official repos. I'm not a lawyer though, so if we really want to dig into it, we can reach out to Chris again and have him pull in.
Well, we did reach out. He gave us his answer, which is what you said. So I don't think we need to reach out again.
Sure.
Is it possible to rename that org to something else that is, looks less official?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's why some of you probably heard of this repo that we have at Red Hat called Yard Turkey. And it's for just what Jing said. It's just an unofficial name. In fact, it's a weird name. No one would ever mistake it for something official. And it's a shared collaborative repo. And that's all we were looking for with this one.
Yeah, I mean, is that necessary though? I think in the past, having a personal repo that someone sets up and just having people collaborate on that hasn't really been too problematic.
So
the question isn't this really just another personal repo, a personal org?
yeah.
Yeah, I think the only concern might be around trademark issues. So I think what Xing suggested might be okay. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a lawyer.
Check with Chris. Yes, do you want to ask Chris that question? Say if we rename this to something really weird,
Anybody
like
can
a personal
have
repo.
that personal repo and allow other people right access to it, right? So I know Srini had worked on these repos, and I don't know if he's on the call right now, but Sid, maybe we can just
Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
I'm here. The question is, well, we started working on the sidecar proof of concept. So if we need to create one extra repo under Kubernetes 6, maybe we should probably do that without having to go through this process. But how many more repos do we need under Kubernetes 6?
We have some coding momentum going, and I liked the repo you set up because to me, it was a way where we can collaborate on proof of concept, prototyping some of this stuff in a collective way.
I think that's fine to do on the official repo, because what we're going to do with the official repo is you're going to have multiple branches, right? So you'll have the master branch where you guys can collaborate and get stuff merged and get your proof of concept going. You can iterate on that and get it into a quality that you think is ready for some sort of 0.1 release. And when you're ready for that, you cut a branch off, call that 0.1, create an official release that says it's 0.1. And then on your master branch, you continue to develop and collaborate as you go.
Yeah.
But Sal, would that be make this different from what we have done for other features? Because for other features, we always want the cap to merge first, and then you can submit a PR, get merged.
Right, that was going to be my question too. Shouldn't the cap merge first?
So yeah, so that's my question. Unless if we want to maybe create not the master, but maybe create like a temp branch or something just for the collaboration, because otherwise I feel this one is getting getting treated differently from other features.
I think I look back to the way that we did CSI, and I think you're right. There was it wasn't called a KEP back then, but there was a design doc that was first merged, and then we started work on the various repos. So maybe if we could get that KEP merged faster, that'll unblock everyone.
Yeah.
We're kind of looking for a temporary solution that's only a problem until that KEP gets merged.
So I think so too. And plus, that's just really my most immediate goal as any kind of official administrator role is get this kept merged. I think it's baked a long time. And I don't think it has to be perfection. It just has to be good enough.
Can you make sure that the KEP answers that question that Sri just raised, which is how many sidecars do we want? How many controllers do we want? What are those responsibilities of those sidecars and controllers? And based on that, we have the answer to our question, which repos do we need to create?
I think we're pretty clear on the architecture at this point.
Okay.
We need 5 repos in total, and possibly a 6th one for test infra.
Okay. Can you talk through what those are and which ones have already been created and what remains?
Yeah. Let me go look at what has already been created. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
6.
Currently, we have 2 repos, a spec and the adapter. So
I see. Okay. So the adapter is the CSI adapter, right, Srini?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the CSI adapter is responsible for taking the credentials from the bucket and bucket access objects and presenting them to the pod that's going to consume it. The component that creates the bucket and bucket access objects is called the cozy controller, the cluster controller. So we need one for that. We're going to have a separate controller for each provisioner. We can call it provisioner controller or cozy controller sidecar. We'll need a repository for that. We'll need one repository for, what was the other one? I think that's about it, right?
Okay, so it sounds like 2 more, one for the controller, one for the sidecar.
Right.
I think it makes sense to have one common controller that you put everything into.
Yeah.
So no objection to that. I think if you want to go ahead and start a open an issue to get that created, I will +1 it. For the sidecars, given how we kind of ended up with multiple sidecars on the CSI side, I'm okay with us creating a sidecar, but let's make sure that the name is kind of a little bit more descriptive, so it leaves room for new additional sidecars to be created in the future if we need it. So maybe if we can call it like Cozy Provisioner or something like that, or Cozy Sidecar Provisioner, instead of just Cozy Sidecar.
Right.
That way it leaves room for additional sidecars to be created in the future.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I agree, because even if you think there's not going to be extra sidecars, there probably will at some point.
Yeah. If you guys are okay with that, go ahead and create the requests, and I can help +1 them, and Shing can help as well.
Yeah, I'll create a request based on after this call. So.
Cool.
Thanks, Srini.
So Saad, besides, I mean, I know that the KEP template has some sections in it that we have not filled in.
Yeah.
I think there's a scale, there's performance, maybe there's testing, and a few others that I haven't looked at it in a while, but we don't have them all. How, and we're trying to like maybe shoot for a week from now. So how, what's the leniency there?
So I need to go back and check, maybe Shing knows, but there is a status field on the template, and that status says whether it's implementable. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. But I believe what we could do is not set the status to implementable. And that gives us a little bit more leniency to say, hey, the KEP is kind of in progress. It's not final yet. And so we get an initial revision of the KEP in, and then we revise until we say, okay, it is implementable as alpha. I think that should be sufficient. Shing, do you know?
I have not, because I always thought everything has to be at least alpha. So I actually am not aware that if it's provisional, then you don't have to fill in those. So that I don't know about that part.
Okay. I mean, ultimately, you know, this is within SIG storage, and the SIG storage leads are the ones that have to ultimately approve this stuff. And so we can, to some extent, come up with our own rules here and do what makes sense and do what the right thing is to do. Like, we don't want process to get in the way of progress, right? And so the right thing to do here is let's unblock a proof of concept. And to do that, I think what makes sense is let's get a KEP merged in some sort of preliminary state and make sure the status is not saying that it's implementable. Then you guys can start your POC, but continue to work on the KEP and get it into a state where it has everything required for alpha. And then we can kind of flip the switch and get it to an alpha. Does that, do folks agree with that?
So in this case, we don't need a API reviewer. Is that so? If it's a provisional?
Not yet. I think we only need an official API reviewer once we have a official Kubernetes API.
Okay.
So I guess we
do have APIs, right? We do have Kubernetes API for the bucket.
Yeah, I guess the CRDs are official.
Yeah.
Right.
We do require that for like one snapshots and all of those other CRDs. So, but I don't know if a provisioner is it different that I.
Yeah, but let's do this. So I think all of that is required for an alpha, right? Okay. We need an official API review and everything for alpha. We need a fully fleshed out KEP for an alpha, but it shouldn't block a proof of concept. And so what we can do is like on the repos where we are checking in these early drafts, put a README that says current status is proof of concept. This is not yet alpha ready, you know, put a disclaimer on there. And then that allows us to unblock the proof of concept, get something going. And then once the KEP gets to an implementable final status, gets official approval for alpha on the CRDs, then we can get that official enhancement kept merged, and then we can come back and create revisions to our repos and get them into an alpha state to reflect the official agreed upon KEP. I think we should bias towards making sure that folks are not blocked on process for getting POC done.
Sounds good. I'll take up that create readmes on each of the repos that we create, and then brief description of what we are trying to achieve in that repo.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Great. Yes, that's very helpful. And so I appreciate it because kind of you're giving us guidance on a fast track to get through.
Yeah, it's really hard to write a fully flushed out KEP without actually writing some code. And realistically, what happens is you put down some thoughts, you create a POC, then you come back and revise it. So I think let's do it in that order. Let's get a KEP down that says, you know, this is for the initial proof of concept, and then get the proof of concept in, and then revise the KEP for an alpha, and then pull in the official API reviewers and all of that to get a more thorough review.
Okay, great. So we're about halfway in. I want Sid to have a chance if there's some technical discussion he wants to run right now. But before we get there, and since we have sort of momentum on the administrative aspects of things, so we're going to do a review meeting, a full review meeting of the KEP a week from today. We'll invite SIG Storage and let them know about that meeting. The purpose of that meeting will be to go over the KEP, make sure there's no big issues, and then merge it.
Yep.
It's not frozen. It can still change. Code, I agree with you, Saad, all the time. That's my experience. You write code and you realize, oh yeah, we didn't think about that. And you change, and the code's right. You need to change the KEP to reflect the code. And so we will do those iterations. Are there any other, I'm thinking of just mine and Aaron's role as administrative leads here. Are there any other thresholds or roadblocks you see ahead of us that we need to start paying attention to get it merged?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the only other thing I would add is make sure that the notes are up to date for folks who can't attend, and make sure that the videos are getting posted for the meetings so that folks who are in different time zones can access them easily.
And Shing, I don't know what you and John worked out between how he got the recordings up there. You know, they just magically appeared and I could listen to stuff again and the notes were there. But so Shing, maybe you can give me some help with that, and I'll try to take over that part of it too. And make
yeah. So for the recording, so I can help with recording, no problem. I think in the past, John actually recorded and sent it to me, and then I upload it. But that's okay. I can record it and upload it to our playlist. So I wonder, should we probably create a separate playlist just for this one, because this one has regular meetings. Right now, I added this to the there is a general playlist for everything. Probably should create one for this. Just for this.
Let's create a playlist specifically for Cozy, and we can move them all over there.
Okay. Yeah, but for notes, I think in the past, it looks like John is the one who has been taking notes. So I don't know how the notes showed up and where it showed up. I think he has a doc, right? Well,
I see a doc linked in the meeting invite. Is that the one that you're using, John or Jeff?
I don't know which one I'm using right now.
Yeah, I think that's the one I shared with you yesterday. Yeah, it's not up to date. I think the last update was from May 28th or something.
Yeah, or June 18th, I think.
I see June 18th.
Right.
So let's use that doc because it's already the one that's linked. And if there's any notes that have been kept elsewhere, let's just move them.
I will ping. I'll take an action on to ping John and see if it just didn't get updated or if he updated somewhere else, and see if I can fill in between June 18th and now.
Perfect.
Otherwise,
we
we
could
just have a gap there. We still have.
As long as we have one source of truth where we're putting all the notes, I think that'll be
all right. So we'll use that doc. And then related to this, Sid, did you say, someone said they were taking notes for this meeting, right?
No, I was saying there was an AI, firenotes.ai or firefly.ai.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that last week. I don't see that this week.
Oh,
But
that.
yeah, we could figure something like that out. Or maybe once Erin is back, we could find out if she would be willing to do it.
So for today's meeting, if no one's officially taken notes, I'll just try to summarize it. But it'll be, and I'll place this link in our chat. But definitely put comments or suggested changes if I've missed stuff, because it's just going to be off the top of my head for today's meeting. And then we maybe need, well, maybe we're going to merge it and we don't need official note taker anymore. Oh, hey, Guy, I see you did something. Here's the document. I just pasted it in chat. Oh, Guy, you have for transcribing. I'm just looking at chat right now. I see. Okay, so I think that wraps up admin stuff. Does anyone else have an administrative issue they see that's looming ahead that would slow down the CAP?
There's one actually. It would be great if we could get a Slack channel. What we do right now is have unofficial channels made with different people from the Kubernetes Slack org.
Yeah, we can get an official Slack channel created. Shing, do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I can apply for one. Just the call, should we just call it cozy or what? COSS?
I think we need to, the guidance we got is to stop creating Slack channels without the SIG storage prefix. So I think we got to put SIG storage or something in front of it. But yeah, maybe SIG storage
okay.
cozy.
I thought the CSI one was initially have something else, and then they shortened it, right?
No, it was always CSI, and then I think
okay.
someone came to us and said, you know, don't do that.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
From
we've
what I
got
remember.
this. I don't know if this is related in some way, but we've got this, you know, work group, and we.
Right. Has an official work group been created for?
Yeah, it's called Container Object Storage Interface WG with dashes between those.
Okay.
Is that in Slack?
Is that official?
It's a Google group.
Oh, that's good. That's not a working group. That's the one that I created.
Got it.
So yeah, because if you want an official one, then you need to apply. That's the process if you're interested. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we should probably apply for an official either work group or sub-project status.
It's already a sub-project, right? Because we already have that added. Yeah. It's already added in the community page.
Okay, and there doesn't seem to be a need to make a work group at this point. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I will keep this. There's some thoughts from John, some API stuff. He's got a directory or folder for meeting notes, but it's just links. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's active right now. The most recent date is June 15th from Sid, who posted some API spec. Okay, I think that can wrap up the admin side of things for now. Feel free to add anything to chat if you think about it. Sid, do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to take over and lead a technical discussion?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. How do I? So the first thing I want to talk about is who's contributing, what are we working on, and what our goals are. So John took care of a lot of this and pretty much solidified the architecture, the topology of the different components. After John actually went ahead and implemented the API spec, and the APIs generated all the code that can be done for it, the controllers and the listers, informers, and such. So I'll first go into who is working on writing code right now. So we've got, like Jeff mentioned earlier, we've got someone named Rob Ratai. He's from Red Hat. He couldn't join the meeting today, but he's been working on the sidecar controller. We've got Srini here. Srini is on the call right now. He is also working on the sidecar controller. And Srini, maybe you could tell us what the other component was that you're working on.
Well, there is. I'm testing the create bucket. So there is a driver library which I assume is required, just like the CSI has, to do the gRPC calls over, and that would probably become a library or a sidecar that gets attached to the driver side of things. So, and currently we also need to develop some, at least test or mock driver ability to.
Yeah, you're talking about getting the end-to-end workflow with a lot of mocked out code.
Right. So I'm writing the CSI provisioner part, which essentially looks at the bucket request and delegate that call all the way into the library on the other side, which talks to a mock driver. So that's the part I'm working on.
Yeah, so you're talking about the controller that would work with the provisioner to provision the bucket, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're building the framework for it.
Right.
Got it. So the third person that I had just invited today is a person named Rajashri. She was on the call until 10:30, but she had to hop off at 10:30. So as of now, Srini and Rob and Rajashri also has given me a commitment of something like 4 to 8 hours a week. So we can say we've got 3 people working on it, including me, it's 4. Our first goal is really to get this to MVP status. So what I'd like to do today is kind of work with you all to figure out what MVP should look like, what that MVP is.
Yeah, in my head, you got to start with the spec, right? If you can get some really early version of the spec out that everybody kind of agrees on, that's a good place to start and build off of, because every other component that you build is likely going to depend on that spec. So
Right.
maybe focus on getting the Go builds going, getting that whole structure laid out. I think that'll be a significant effort. I don't know if you want to put that on one person or have multiple people collaborate on it.
I think it'll be something that multiple people collaborate on. So right now we're writing the spec for Create Bucket.
Okay.
Srini, I haven't followed up with you after the Tuesday call. Can you share the status of the Create Bucket spec?
Yeah, we had a brief call between me and Rob, and essentially for the Create Bucket,
So,
we need, it depends on different, talk about, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't hear anything because I think my connection was bad, so I thought you weren't talking.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I talked to Rob, and then what we decided is Create Bucket requires just the bucket name and driver parameters, where we will have other details like GCS needs a project name, whatnot. The different details will be in there, but the main question was how we send the auth token and or other credentials to connect and make a actual provider call to create the bucket. I think we sorted that out. We will follow the same way, like a provisioner secret or something that that will have the details on how we read the token and pass it on to the driver to make the external call. We are only concentrating on the create bucket. We haven't talked about delete bucket that has some other lifecycle issues associated with it, I guess. So, and this is for greenfield only. So we still haven't talked about the brownfield case.
Yeah. So in terms of what would, extrapolating that, we would need create bucket, delete bucket, possibly some form of grant permission as bucket gets shared between multiple consumers. And obviously this would have to work for both greenfield and brownfield, at which point I think we can call it MVP. What does everyone think about that?
Well, and grant, if grant is the idea for brownfield, then probably the counterpart is a revoke.
Yeah, the bucket access request, that object will delegate those calls out, right? I mean, is the bucket access request is good enough to do both grant and revoke, or have the granularity that we need?
I mean, bucket access request is what the Kubernetes is the Kubernetes object that users will use to interact.
Right.
For asking for permissions, or for us to manage the lifecycle of the permissions. However, in terms of the spec, at what point can we call the spec MVP? Is my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. What is MVP in your head?
Alpha.
Alpha.
Yeah.
So alpha requires API approval. We need to kind of get that reviewed by official API reviewers and have them say, okay, this looks legitimate, this looks fine. Before that, I think in my head, an MVP is more kind of like a POC.
Yeah.
It's internal consensus. It's the KEP that we're going to do next week. I would expect you guys to kind of present what you're thinking these calls would look like, and shake that out there and make sure there's agreement within SIG storage to say, oh yeah, this looks fine. Let's go ahead and implement a early version of that.
Spec, do you mean the Kubernetes API specs?
No. When I mean spec, I mean the cozy gRPC interface.
Understood. Yeah, that's what we meant by spec just now. Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, let's take it one step at a time then. Let's just focus on what's needed for the KEP, because that's the first part. In that case, yeah, we can flush out what create bucket is going to look like. Maybe we won't have all the different APIs spec'd out by then, but create bucket is something that's definitely doable by then.
Yeah, it sounds like a good next step.
Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to do today was kind of get a consensus on just following up on last week's meeting. I think John and the rest of us were talking about delete bucket. I wasn't available for the whole meeting. So I actually lost track halfway through, but if someone can update me on what the final resolution was, if you know, or did we even reach a resolution about delete buckets, whatever the discussion was?
I missed that meeting also, so I'm interested too.
Okay, that's okay. Yes,
I don't recall a discussion on delete bucket, but I have terrible memory, so.
Yeah, we talked probably a little bit about the retainment policy, things like that. I don't have. Okay,
I can go back and look at the recording. Yeah.
I think Andrew was mostly.
Oh, right. So this was the async topic versus sync decision, right?
Yes.
Right.
Races that can occur. Sid, tell me if you agree or disagree, but I think the delete bucket is the kind of one remaining technical issue right now to solve for MVP.
Yeah, I think as we implement more, we might come up with new things, but yeah.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, I think the question was around whether we're going to make delete bucket follow the synchronous model like all the other calls, or should we make it async? I think initially I was pushing to say, let's follow the model of everything else, make it synchronous, and then, if it times out, just retry, since all calls are supposed to be idempotent anyway.
Oh, right.
But then I think Ben raised some questions around user experience, and if you did that, it would fill up the error logs, and that's not the most ideal user experience. So how about in the status, you have an official response which says, this is in progress, try again. And that way it's not logged as an official error, but you can log it as a warning or something on the client side.
Or
And,
an info message.
right.
John and I had that reminds me. John and I did have a brief discussion last week on that, and we were, because the status of returning non-nil sets up everything in controller runtime for Kubernetes to keep retrying with however the smart people decided that stuff should be retried, exponential backup, whatever it is. And so that mechanism is all in place. We don't want to reinvent anything like that. So if there was a way to know that the return from the provisioner was a non-nil status, but was just informational, then we can use the existing mechanism. I think that's what John and I were aiming for last time we talked about it. Does that make sense to you guys and the folks on the call?
Yeah, so basically, I think that's fine. If you could have delete bucket return just kind of a Boolean or something, or that says, hey, this is still in progress, it's not complete yet, please retry. On the client side, we could easily add in logic that says, I will look at the response that I get, and if the response contains this, I'm going to assume that this is not complete, and we'll continue with the retry logic.
Right. And that's for a single controller thread, because there can be multiple threads running in parallel too. But we're just talking about a single thread responding to async deletes, right?
Right. And the way that ideally you want to construct this controller or the sidecar would be that this shouldn't be blocking necessarily, but we can talk through the structure of the code once we get to the implementation.
Because there's only one sidecar per provisioner, so we don't want that sidecar to block on a delete.
Right. Yeah, basically, if you have multiple, requests coming in for a create and there's a delete that's taking a long time, you don't want your sidecar to sit there waiting for that delete to finish. So all of this has to be multi-threaded on the sidecar side.
Right.
So in this case, does the delete return a bucket object so that you can check the status? So it's more like a little bit like a get.
I would imagine the delete just says the delete is in progress, or the delete is complete, or there's an error. That's it.
Yeah, you don't need to return an object because you have the ID at the time you do the delete.
Okay.
Unlike the similar case for create snapshot where you need to return something so they know what to refer to.
Yep.
Okay, so if you want to check, then you basically do a get or something to find out.
No,
You're there.
You could keep calling delete.
Keep calling delete, right? That's the way to do it.
Okay.
Because delete is supposed to be idempotent.
Right.
But because if you're calling get, then by the time it's actually gone, get will just return an error, not found.
And nothing, right?
Whereas delete, if it's complete, will just succeed. Or if it's not, it'll say, oh, I'm still working on it.
Right.
Well, it can return success. I'm still working on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So another paradigm that I saw, but I'm not sure if it's getting more traction or less, is that for UX of these things, you pass on a grace period, right? That's from the kubectl does that, and you can also imagine like a UX where you actually say if you want to sync or async response, right?
Do you want to support both, or I thought if we're supporting async, then it should just all be async, right?
Yeah.
So I think the easiest thing to do is have all the other calls be synchronous. For the delete, what we're doing is async, but it's kind of, it's not like a full-fledged async protocol, right? We're not going to return an operation ID. That was a simplification that Ben raised last time. All we're doing is just doing the same kind of synchronous call, but it will immediately return, and it'll have a Boolean that'll say, I'm not done yet, please retry. And that'll be just a one-off that we do for this delete call. For the rest of the calls, I think we can just assume that they're blocking unless we have a reason to think otherwise, that they're going to take a long time.
Do we don't have a problem for create bucket? I would think that should take long, right? No, that does not.
No, create bucket. So the problem with delete is when you delete a bucket, if it has a lot of objects in it, it would have to list first, which is a slow operation,
Okay.
depending on the number of objects. So
Okay.
is there a plan for how we are going to enforce provisioners to write this in an asynchronous way?
So that's the nice thing about having the sidecar, is that we write the sidecar, we create it. And so we'll give an opinionated sidecar that does the right thing. And so as a plugin author, cozy plugin author, I don't have to worry about those details. I will just take the sidecar that we created and then pair it with my own.
Well,
Right.
there is an implementation choice for driver authors, which is they could make delete block for some amount of time if they have hope that it will succeed, like in the next 5-10 seconds. Or
Yeah.
they could always return immediately, even if it's only going to take 1 second to delete the whole bucket. They could just say, you know what, I've started working on it, but I'm not done yet. It becomes an implementation choice.
Right.
And they can block up to the gRPC timeout, which is what, 30 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the number of buckets is metadata or whether it takes time to figure that out. But then I agree with you that it could be up to the sidecar to decide whether at the very lowest level of delete, whether it's async or not.
Yeah. The good part is it doesn't matter. The sidecar can choose to do either, and you'll get relatively correct behavior. You might just chew up a lot of threads blocking in the worst case, but no more than the gRPC timeout.
Right. Right, and we expect it to be important. Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. Because of the gRPC timeout, we're good. Okay, I think that clears up that. So just to summarize, we're saying that because deletes can take a long time, we want to make sure that it doesn't become a blocking operation. So we're going to do it in an asynchronous way. And as far as the plugin author is concerned, they can just implement it like usual. And our gRPC timeout will naturally time it out and put it at the back of the queue. Yeah, does that conclude it?
Yeah, I think, on the, like Ben said, as a plugin author, it's up to you. You can decide to immediately return if you choose to, or if you think it's going to be relatively quick, you can spend another 5-10 seconds or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And on the client side, we should be able to handle both of those cases. As long as we get a response within a reasonable amount of time, it's a valid response. If it says it's still in progress, we handle that, just with exponential backoff.
Right. A gRPC timeout has to be treated as in progress, don't you think?
Yes, that's always the case for any of the operations that we execute.
And how does that reflect in the Kubernetes API then? So the bucket, the bucket
And
request.
so what happens?
So the bucket itself will stay.
Yeah, it remains
go ahead.
pending, right? So if you create a bucket, initially the status is that it's pending provisioning, and until the bucket is officially confirmed to be provisioned, that status will remain that way. And then on the deleting side, your status will remain deleting until you've actually deleted the underlying resource. What it actually means in practice for deletion is that there's a deletion timestamp that's put on the object, and the object is not actually deleted until the underlying resource is deleted. There's a finalizer on there, and that finalizer is not removed until the object is actually physically deleted, the bucket is deleted. And so it won't do
So is there, right, so the one thing I wanted to make sure, are we planning to have a way to also give up by the sort of the user of that bucket saying, okay, so now like I remove the finalizer. By that I want like all of the chain to just stop, right?
Yeah, so basically give up would be Kubernetes doesn't give up until somebody forces it or tells it to stop. And so if you're trying to delete and it's taken days and it hasn't been deleted, the force option is that a Kubernetes user could go in and force remove that finalizer. And then the Kubernetes system will say, okay, there's no finalizer, I'll go ahead and delete this object. When the object is gone, then our controllers look at that and stop trying. There's no more object, no more retries.
Guy, did you mean the bucket access requests and everything? Do they get deleted if bucket gets deleted?
No, I was actually thinking about what Saad said about the controller, retries or threads or whatever resources are used in there, so that they can sort of clear up when I force delete the bucket.
Yeah, so the control loop is basically.
But it seems to be right.
Yeah, the control loop looks at Kubernetes objects as long as those objects exist and the actual state hasn't converged to the desired state, you continue to retry. When the objects disappear, or the Kubernetes objects disappear, or their state changes, then you stop the retries.
Got it.
Good.
So,
Okay, yeah, we should capture this in a document in the KEP. I can take care of that, Jeff.
okay. Yeah, and there's definitely some changes I need to make to the KEP as well.
Hey, so I just noticed Rajashri joined back. I would like you all to join me in welcoming her. She's going to be contributing. This is her first meeting. Hey, Rajashri.
Hey everyone. I'm really excited to join this group, and I would just like to get to know more and start contributing.
Great.
Awesome, welcome.
Great. How do you pronounce your name?
Oh yeah, it's Rajashri, but if it's too difficult to pronounce, you can call me Raj.
Raj or Rajashri.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And welcome. We appreciate.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So Rajashri and I worked at Rancher Labs together while we were still there. Yeah, that's how we met. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Great. Is there a particular area you're interested in working on, Rajashri?
So actually, not yet. Like I just would like to know what all is being worked on, and then like right now I don't have a particular area as such.
Okay. In the chat, I have a link to a document, and the document also points to the KEP. So it'll sort of be a gateway to other resources that we have available.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, where exactly is the link?
I'll share it with you.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll spend some time with you offline, and we'll go over the current architecture and where you can start contributing.
Yeah. And just so you guys know that we have an intern, a long-term intern working for us, and he's about to wrap up. He's getting close to wrapping up his current project, and I've talked with Aaron, and we're leaning right now toward his next project being Cozy. He would like to get some Kubernetes coding experience. He's a sharp guy, and we think this might be a good win for both. We can use more help, and it would be a good experience for him as well. So that's at least a possibility right now, and he'd be able to dedicate full time.
Yeah.
There was also.
Hey, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was someone on the SIG storage call today, Giannis, who has another project that is similar to what Cozy is tackling, and he was very interested in contributing as well. Awesome. I'll put him in touch with you guys.
Please, yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we're at 2 minutes before close. Is there anything? Does anyone have something on their mind they didn't get a chance to talk yet? Okay, going once, no. Okay, so Sid, do you have any short other technical thing?
I think that's it from me.
Okay, I've taken some notes. I'll work, Xing, I will contact you and figure out what role I might have or action I need to do to get this, the notes and the recording uploaded to the correct location, and
Sure.
we'll call it good. Yeah, I appreciate, just hang with us a little bit. The transition is just going to be a little rough. John did a lot of work, and I had a lot of balls in the air simultaneously related to this KEP. And so we'll get through this, but there might be some bumps.
Yeah, next week we'll have everything ready for the KEP, the spec ready, and whatever else is needed, the KEP document as well.
Great.
Yeah.
I think the best news, the best thing for me on this meeting is that I see consensus to get this KEP merged, and that we see the light we're near the end of that tunnel, and we're ready to go forward. And I think that will be a tremendous milestone.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye.